Make no mistake, if a Brussels puppet government were to take our place, they would immediately contribute to the sending of Hungarian people's money to Ukraine, the dispatching of weapons to Ukraine, and the undisturbed operation in Ukraine of a corrupt regime whose exposure, who knows if it's partial or complete, the exposure of Alibaba and all his associates. If someone were to ask me what would be the most understated expression that one could possibly use, if we look at today and the conditions prevailing here, then that is sheer madness. It is quite simply utter madness that has taken over. Utter madness has taken hold here in Brussels. If someone were to ask me what would be the most understated expression that one could possibly use, if we look at today and the conditions prevailing here, then that is sheer madness. It is quite simply utter madness that has taken over. Utter madness has taken hold here in Brussels. Today, the agenda of the Foreign Affairs Council meeting, which focuses on Ukraine, it simply went through as if absolutely nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. We then proceeded to negotiate the provision of further assistance to Ukraine. Regarding 100 billion euros in aid, as if in Ukraine things weren't currently happening. One of the most serious corruption scandals in European political history would be unfolding. Today, during the Foreign Ministers' Council meeting, a proposal was put forward that we should send even more money to Ukraine in such a way that, if possible, for several years, we will finance the operation of the Ukrainian state and the Ukrainian army. It was proposed that we should send even more weapons to Ukraine, and that, if necessary, we should also purchase weapons for Ukraine from the credit line specifically designated for the strengthening of European defense capabilities. And the proposal has been put forward to impose sanctions on Russian energy companies as well, which would undoubtedly be another severe blow to the European economy. This is regardless of the fact that in Ukraine, one of the gravest corruption scandals in European political history is currently unfolding. Today here in Brussels, they proposed sending more funds and arms to Ukraine and imposing new sanctions on energy supplies, and all this for an unwinnable war. I would call this madness, but unfortunately it can be taken to an even greater extreme, because today several of my foreign minister colleagues have stated that the corruption scandal currently unfolding in Ukraine is yet another reason, another justification for Ukraine to be admitted into the European Union. And now many might be quite surprised. This sentence should have been said in reverse with the opposite meaning. That would indeed be normal, but the situation is that here it's not normalcy, but a madhouse that prevails. So I'll say it once more. So today, several foreign minister colleagues argued that the ongoing corruption scandal in Ukraine is yet another reason to admit Ukraine into the European Union. This is the madness that must be stopped. They said that to prevent more corruption scandals, Ukrainians must join the European Union. This is what we've come to today. Clearly, this madness must be stopped at once. In Ukraine, the Ukraine power corruption system is operating, reaching the highest levels of state function, a war mafia, and as a result, who knows where the euros of European people have gone. What is also a great danger, a very great danger, is that some European politicians, most of them Just at the news that some kind of peace plan is being prepared for the resolution of the Ukrainian-Russian war, it made it abundantly clear that they remain interested in undermining the peacemaking process. They articulated a wide range of doubts and serious objections against any potentially existing peace plan. It is clear that European politicians still do not want peace, and they will do everything in their power to prevent a peace agreement from being established. And to make it even crazier, the European Union's High Representative has on several occasions praised and lauded the Ukrainian attacks against the Russian energy system. Obviously, such a statement poses a danger to the security of Europe's energy supply, and such a statement, the praise and glorification of these attacks, clearly represents an escalation risk. The Ukrainian foreign minister was also connected via video at the beginning. I wouldn't say for long, about 1.5, but maybe 2. Let's be lenient. For 2 sentences he addressed the corruption scandal unfolding in his country. He spent more time on his proposal, which suggested that beyond sanctions we should also impose tariffs on products originating from Russia or anything else coming from Russia, arguing that it doesn't require unanimous agreement. So, to make sure, it also made a dangerous demand for Hungary. The situation is that today here in Brussels, an illusion holds the political elite captive. This illusion states that Ukraine can win this war. This is very far from reality. It's nothing more than an illusion. Of course, while an Ukrainian victory is an illusion, the Ukrainians do have the right to continue the war, but that of the Ukrainians, their decision or right to continue the war places no moral or legal obligation on the European Union regarding support for Ukraine. It is profoundly contrary to the interests of Europe. It is profoundly contrary to the interests of Europe that European money and weapons are being funneled into this war, into the continuation of this unwinnable conflict. At the same time, I also believe it would be in Europe's interest for European-Russian negotiations to begin as soon as possible, so that following a potential American-Russian agreement, the European Union would not be excluded from a future East-West cooperation that promises success. And finally, I also think it's important that it is a lie that Ukraine is fighting for Europe. It is a lie that Europe's security depends on Ukraine. Europe's security does not depend on Ukraine. Europe's security depends on improving the defense capabilities of European countries. Europe's security depends on how the European Union's member states can strengthen their own defense capabilities, their own defense industry, their own armies. Arming the Ukrainian army does not mean Europe's security. It means something entirely different. Europe's security is guaranteed by improving the defense capabilities of European nations, not by arming Ukraine. In summary, not only do we not contribute to the European Union sending even more money and even more weapons to Ukraine, we not only refuse to contribute to the money of the Hungarian people being sent to Ukraine, but we demand that Ukraine immediately account for all European Union support received to date. We demand that Ukraine demonstrate how it spent the money of the European people. And we demand that Ukraine provide a full account of how much of the European taxpayer citizens' money has fallen victim to the corruption network. How much money has the war mafia taken from the pockets of European citizens? How much money has that corrupt power system, which is operating in Ukraine, consumed from the European Union's support funds? We will not only prevent Hungarian funds from being sent to Ukraine, auquel du pays récupérer ça point, but we also demand that Ukraine immediately account for all European Union support received thus far. We can, of course, do all this as long as Hungary has a national government. Make no mistake, if a Brussels puppet government were to take our place, they would immediately contribute to the sending of Hungarian people's money to Ukraine, the dispatching of weapons to Ukraine, and the undisturbed operation in Ukraine of a corrupt regime whose exposure, who knows if it's partial or complete, the exposure of Alibaba and all his associates. If we must give up oil and nuclear cooperation with the Russians, then Hungarian energy bills will triple for families in the short term. We will not allow this. We will not allow sanction fanatic European politicians to increase the energy costs for Hungarian families, especially since the United States granted Hungary an exemption from sanctions concerning the purchase of both crude oil and natural gas, and also lifted the restrictions on the construction of new blocks at the Pax nuclear power plant
against previously imposed Biden sanctions.
So while on the other side of the ocean, 9 hours flight time from here, they understand, they see, they fully grasp that it stems from Hungary's geographical position, that without energy resources from Russia, the country cannot physically be supplied. Yet here in Brussels, just under 2 hours flight from Budapest, they simply fail to understand this. This is also a sign of madness. But of course, since sanctions require unanimity, we will not allow companies cooperating with Hungary, whether in the oil or nuclear industries, to be sanctioned. We will not allow it. Regarding von der Leyen's 3 proposals on how to get European people's money to Ukraine. What's common in these proposals is that ultimately they all send European people's money to Ukraine. You can outline various methods and use all sorts of buzzwords. Frozen assets, joint loan. I don't know what the essence is that, President von der Leyen put 3 proposals on the table, all 3 of which ultimately take European people's money to Ukraine, and this is unacceptable. So